Bismillah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I mentioned the previous week that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had granted the Muslims to engage in jihad. أُذِنَ لِلَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَ بِأَنَّهُمْ ظُلِمُوا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى نَصْرِهِمْ لَقَدِيرٌ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted permission to the Muslims on account of the Muslims being wronged and oppressed, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever qadir, is ever capable of aiding them. So this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had granted the Muslims in general permission to fight against the disbelievers. Now, 7 months, approximately 7 months after the migration, and this is the month of Ramadan, first year of the Hijrah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent Hamza radiallahu anhu on the first expedition. So there were 30 muhajirun, and Hamza radiallahu anhu led them towards the area of Sayf al-Bahr, from via al-East, which was the west of Medina. So a Qurayshi caravan of 300 mounted people. They were under the leadership of Abu Jahl, and they were returning from Sham to Makkah because that's where they conducted trade. They conducted trade in Sham, in a place called Basra. That city still remains even today. Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu anhu in his era of Khilafat built a masjid over there, where the Quraysh, where they would engage in trade. He built a masjid there. That masjid is destroyed now, from what I know, because of the bombing. But this is where the Qurayshis, this is where the Quraysh would go in Rihlat al-Shita wal-Sayf, which is mentioned in Surah Al-Fil. They would go to Basra in Sham, and they would go south to Yemen. So Hamza radiallahu anhu, he reached the area. Both sides, they faced one another. Battle lines were even drawn. It got to that point where even battle lines were drawn. So Majdi ibn Amr al-Juhani, he came in between the two sides and he prevented hostilities. So the Qurayshi caravan, it returned to Makkah, and Hamza radiallahu anhu returned to Medina. So there was no fight or skirmish, nothing like that. 8 months after the Hijrah, in the month of Shawwal, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent 60 to 80 muhajirun under the leadership of Ubaidah ibn al-Harith towards Batn Rabith. So again, there were no Ansar, because remember, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had taken an oath from the Ansar that they would defend so long as the defense is in Medina, not outside Medina, in Medina. And we're going to circle back to that point when we speak about the Battle of Badr, because Badr is outside Medina, right? Badr is outside Medina. So we're going to circle back to this point, inshallah, when we get to that part. So again, 60 to 80 Muhajirun, they're under the leadership of Ubaidah ibn al-Harith towards Batn Rabit. No Ansar, no Muslims from Medina in this expedition. The standard of Ubaidah ibn al-Harith was white in color, and it was carried by Mistah, Sayyiduna Mistah ibn Athatha, ibn al-Muttalib ibn Abd Manaf. So Mistah, very famous Sahabi. Rasulullah ﷺ would provide a stipend for Mistah. And he is one of those companions, that was part of the lie that took place against Aisha radiallahu anha. He was one of the companions, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave the companions because they unknowingly, this was not intentional or malicious or because they were spiteful. No, this was unintentional. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave the Sahaba for that, who participated in spreading the lies against Aisha radiallahu anha. So this is that Mistah, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anh made a promise. It's a very long hadith in Bukhari. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, he promised that I'm going to stop the stipend and I'm going to stop my help that I was giving to Sayyidina Mistah. And the Prophet ﷺ said that no, you should not do that. Give kafara, give an atonement to the promise that you made, the vow that you made, and continue helping him. So anyway, moving forward, when the Muslim army reached Rabit, there were 200 people in the Qurayshi party, including Abu Sufyan. And ultimately, he would become the chieftain after the Battle of Badr, because you have 70 of the Sanadid of Quraysh. You have 70 of the chieftains who met their end in the Battle of Badr. So general hostilities did not occur. However, arrows were exchanged between the two sides. This for the first time ever. Arrows were exchanged. And in this expedition, this is where Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas shot the first arrow in Islam. So this is Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas. For the first time, he shoots an arrow, and this is for the sake of Islam. This is one of the 10 who was given the glad tidings of Jannah while alive. During this expedition, there were two companions who had earlier embraced Islam, but they could not migrate to Makkah due to the Quraysh. So their names was Miqdad ibn Amr and Utbah ibn Ghazwan. They joined the Qurayshi caravan in the hope that as soon as they get an opportunity, they will join the Muslims. So it was under that pretense that they joined the caravan. So whenever they get an opportunity, we're going to join with the Muslims. When the opportunity arose, the opportunity did arise, they both left the caravan and they joined the Muslims. Now, Rasulullah ﷺ, of course, had to oversee. So these were the first battles, not even battle, but skirmishes, kind of, that the Muslims had to engage in against the non-Muslims. Because again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given permission. Now you can fight. Now you can defend yourself. Because you're defending something greater. You're defending the practice of Islam. You're defending your way of life. You're defending the way that you live. Right? Otherwise, if they were to attack Medina, at that time, then, and permission was not granted, then that's it. This would be the end of Islam. So moving forward, Rasulullah ﷺ had to oversee all aspects of life for the Muslims in Medina, and this included how they lived. When Rasulullah ﷺ arrived in Medina, all of the water, one of the big issues was water. Because in Makkah, that's not an issue. You have Zamzam. Zamzam is available, and it's available in abundance. It doesn't stop. But in Medina, this is a problem, water. So all of the wells, apart from the well of Ruma, it wasn't sweet. It's not sweet water. And this was a cause of concern, because sweet water was needed for drinking. So the owner of this well was a Jewish person, and he's not going to give the water for free. He would always charge, and of course this would prove very difficult for the Muslims who are not affluent. So what happened was Uthman radiallahu anh, he purchased the well and he gave it to the Prophet ﷺ in exchange for a fountain in Jannah. This was the deal. Right? This was the deal that Uthman radiallahu anh made, and this guarantees Uthman radiallahu anh paradise. And the Sahaba, they were very when it came to rewards, they were always thinking ahead. They were always thinking forward. That if I get a fountain in paradise, that means I'm a Jannati. That means I'm a dweller of paradise. So this was their ultimate objective. That some way, somehow, I need to acquire paradise. So the well was given in the service of the Muslims. Whoever wished to drink from it for free, he was allowed, and there was never any charge after that. This was the purchase of Uthman, and as a matter of fact, to this day, whatever Al-Qaf Uthman established, they continue even today. Those Al-Qaf, those endowments that Uthman gave in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they continue even today. And there's, I think, some hotels in Medina where they charge a subsidized amount. And this is again through the endowment of Uthman radiallahu anhu. Now, just to summarize the first year of the Hijrah, I would say there's approximately 20 events that occurred first year of the Hijrah. So Rabiul Awwal, the Prophet ﷺ migrated from Makkah to Medina. The Prophet ﷺ stayed in Quba, laid the foundation for Masjid Quba. Rasulullah led the Jummah Salat in the neighborhood of Banu Salim on his way from Quba to Medina. This was the Jummah Salat and the first khutbah, sermon that was given in Islam. Rasulullah then rode his camel. The camel stopped in some land that was owned by two orphans. These orphans, they were from the Banu Najjar. And this land was purchased and it was chosen for the site of Masjid Nabawi. The dwellings of the Prophet ﷺ were also built. Rasulullah ﷺ during this time stayed in the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari while Masjid Nabawi was being built, while his dwellings were being built. Rasulullah ﷺ sent for his wife Sauda and his daughters. They were still in Makkah at the time. His eldest daughter Zainab did not come at this point. She was still in Makkah. The family of Abu Bakr also migrated to Medina, and the greatest scholar of the Jews, Abdullah ibn Salam, embraced Islam in the first month, Rabiul Awwal. Right? Rabiul Akhir. The Fard Salat of Dhuhr, Asr and Isha was increased from 2 rakat to 4, because originally the prayers were in units of 2. Then they were increased to 4. Right? And this is when a person is a resident. The Fard Salat for Safar, traveling, remained at 2 for all of the prayers with the exception of Maghrib. And before this, all of the Fard, as I said, were only 2 rakat except the Maghrib Salat. In this month, Abdullah ibn Zubayr is born, the son of Zubayr bin Awwam and Asma radiallahu anha. This is the same Abdullah bin Zubayr who became shaheed at the hands of Hajjaj bin Yusuf. Right? Abdullah bin Zubayr, he became the Khalif for a little while in Makkah, and the Umayyad Khalif sent Hajjaj bin Yusuf to bombard Makkah. Abdullah bin Zubayr sought refuge in Makkah, and he bombarded the Haram, Hajjaj bin Yusuf, and he killed Abdullah bin Zubayr. Hajjaj bin Yusuf is responsible for his death. So he was the first child born from the Muhajirun after the Hijrah, and as I said, the son of Asma bint Abi Bakr, the sister of Aisha radiallahu anha, and Zubayr bin Awwam. So he is the grandson of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. So it speaks volumes about the Umayyad regime during his time, what they did to him. And inshallah we'll speak about him when we get to that point, inshallah. Nu'man bin Bashir was also born. So he's one of the young Sahaba, also narrated quite a number of hadith. He was the firstborn in the Ansar after the Hijrah. Kulthum ibn Hadam and Asad bin Zurara both passed away during this time. Asad bin Zurara instrumental. He was one of those who gave bay'ah, one of the naqib. He gave bay'ah at Aqaba to the Prophet ﷺ, one of those responsible for the spread of Islam in Medina. The adhan for Salah had begun after when? When after Abdullah bin Zayd Ibn Abdi Rabbi saw a dream, Rasulullah during this month also made a treaty with the Jews of Medina. This is when the constitution of Medina was drawn up. The charter of Medina was drawn up. The first of its kind. This was unprecedented. Nothing, you will find nothing in history. Right? You find something like the Magna Carta and the Constitution of the United States, but the first constitution, the first charter that was drawn up was by the Prophet ﷺ with all of the inhabitants of Medina. And the inhabitants included the Muslims, the Jews, and obviously the hypocrites as well, who were unknown except to the Prophet ﷺ and select Sahaba. In Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ sent Hamza, commanding an expedition in the direction of Sayf al-Bahr, to intercept a Qurayshi caravan. This took place in Ramadan. In Shawwal, Rasulullah sent Ubaidah ibn al-Harith, commanding an expedition to Batn Rabigh. And this is the month where the Prophet ﷺ solemnized his marriage to Aisha radiallahu anha. Shawwal. Zulqa'dah, the Prophet ﷺ sent Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqas on an expedition to Kharar. And the Prophet ﷺ in this month established the bonds of brotherhood between the Muhajirun and the Ansar. And in this year, two of the leaders of the Quraysh in Makkah also passed away. Some big names. Walid ibn Mughira and As ibn Wa'il. The first year of the Madani period of Rasulullah's life, now it has come to an end. The town of Yathrib has become Madinatul Munawwara, and it has become the new home of the Prophet ﷺ and Islam. The tribes of Banu Aus and Khazraj, they have become united. Prior to that, they were at odds and at war with one another. They became united under the banner of Islam. And the years of enmity that they had for one another and the confrontations that they had with one another, all of that ended at the hands of the Prophet ﷺ. During this period, Allah would now gradually bring down the commandments until the religion would be perfected. The obligatory, as I said, fard units of Dhuhr, Asr, Isha was 2. Now it became 4. During the Makkah period, the Prophet ﷺ created bonds of brotherhood between the companions. Abu Bakr had been paired with Umar, Hamza with Zayd ibn Haritha, Uthman with Abdurrahman bin Auf. Rasulullah ﷺ then repeated the same thing. When the Muhajirun came to Medina, he bonded the Muhajirun with the Ansar, the helpers and the Muhajirun, the immigrants. 45 Ansar, they were paired with 45 Muhajirun. And this bond would benefit the companions in many ways. They would help each other in times of need and difficulty. The weak and poor would be strengthened by someone who is strong and able. And the Muhajirun had left everything behind in Makkah. And the Ansar shared everything they had with their new brothers so that they are welcome, they feel welcome in their new home. The new masjid was built, 5 times daily salat had been established. Now the Prophet ﷺ, this is where the concern came up that how should we congregate for the salat. And as I said, the previous week, Abdullah ibn Zayd. This is one Sahabi who has narrated just one hadith, the hadith of Azan. So when he saw the dream, he went straight to the Prophet ﷺ, informed him. The Prophet of Allah conveys the words to Bilal radiallahu anh, and he is the one who gave the first call ever for the salat. When it was heard, Umar radiallahu anh came out of his house. He's dragging his sheep behind him, and went to the Prophet ﷺ to inform him that he saw the same dream. So the Prophet ﷺ told Umar radiallahu anh that he's already beaten you to it. So from that day, the adhan would be called every salat, right? Every salat, before every salat, and this continues throughout the world even today. So in this year, as I said, the 3 tribes, Banu Qaynuqa, Banu Nadir, Banu Qurayza, the Prophet of Allah made treaties with them. Also hypocrites amongst the Muslims, and ultimately they stayed. They were still there even after the Prophet ﷺ, even the last year. The hypocrites still remained. So in the years to come, they carried out many. They would carry out different types of acts to sow discord between the Muslims, the munafiqun, and also to aid their enemies. Rasulullah had also now been sent revelation that now you have to strive in the path of Allah. You've been given permission. In the month of Ramadan, as I said at the beginning, Hamza radiallahu anh was sent on the first expedition, no hostilities. Following month, Ubaidah ibn al-Harith. And the last expedition for that year was Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqas, shot the first arrow in Islam. And the following year, the second year of the Hijrah, we're going to see many new commandments and further development on existing religious practices. Inshallah, we'll continue that next week. So next week, inshallah, we will discuss the Qibla, the turning of the Qibla, and we'll see how much we can cover.
So, about the war, right? About the battle. So you need to have a foundation, a state first before only the end. That's the reason.
Can you repeat the question, please?
No, the command of the war, or the Allah give.
Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave permission. Yes.
Permission is because before that, it's because you don't have a state.
You don't. Yes, you don't have permission.
You didn't. No, but you don't have a state as well. That's the reason.
That could be a reason. That could be a reason, but I think the primary reason was that the order of Allah, the command of Allah was not there, that go and fight. And of course, yes, the wisdom could be this, that there was no state, or the Muslims were not in that kind of position where they could fight in Makkah because they were a minority. And the people of Makkah, they were many.
But for today, the hukum must be from the state to
Oh yes, yeah, it has to be from the Khalif. It has to be from the Khalif. Today, the command would come from the Khalif. And only if the Khalif saw that there is maslahah in it, that there is general betterment for the Muslims.
Let's say you start by yourself, then against a non-Muslim, and then you die. Is considered shaheed or not shaheed?
Shaheed.
But without the command of the state, I mean, without permission of the state.
Without permission from the state, then it's difficult to say. But I would say that yes, that person would still be shaheed. Yeah. Because if you're defending, then definitely you would be shaheed. Yeah. If you're on the offensive, then there's going to be a difference of opinion. But if you're defending, 100% you're going to be shaheed. Because even Islam allows that you defend your land, you defend your home.
The first constitution, it was not before the Makkah, before Fatih Makkah. It was not the first constitution before Rasulullah.
The first constitution was the Charter of Medina.
Oh,
the Constitution of Medina, yeah.
Okay.
So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because there were non-Muslim tribes living in Medina, you have the 3 Jewish tribes that were living in Medina. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he drew up a constitution that was fair for all of the parties that were residing in Medina.
Okay. Maybe that is when Rasulullah came from Tyre. So before the Fatih Makkah, I think, not sure. Maybe
that was Sulh Hudaybiyah. So what you're talking about, this was Sulh Hudaybiyah. This was the Pact of Hudaybiyah. That the Prophet ﷺ went for Umrah.
Some deal, with
the yeah. So this was in the 6th year. In the 6th year, where the Prophet ﷺ went for Umrah, he saw a dream,
right?
And that he was doing tawaf, and the dreams of the prophets, they're true. So the dream is interpreted that the Rasulullah ﷺ would do Umrah with the Sahaba, with the companions. So he went over there and he was stopped and he was prevented by the non-Muslims. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet ﷺ, yes, you will do Umrah, but I never said when. So this was where they drew up the Pact of Hudaybiyah. So in this pact, this was seen as a disadvantage for the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed them that this was not a disadvantage, this was an advantage. And this is actually when Surah Fatah was revealed. Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed the Muslims, because they had questioned that, this Pact of Hudaybiyah, this is very unfavorable to us and it's favorable to them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is revealing this verse. It doesn't make sense. So they questioned that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. And during the ceasefire, in those 3 years, so many Muslims, so many non-Muslims, they accepted Islam during these 3 years. It was unprecedented. The amount of Muslims up to that point, there were very few. But once in those 3 years, because of that ceasefire, so many Muslims would come into the fold of Islam that at Hajjat al-Wada you have more than 100,000 Sahaba. How did that happen? It happened because of that ceasefire that the Sahaba looked at as a disadvantage. It's amazing how the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the decision, the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is amazing, that we can never question.
The Muslims stand for the promise, but the non-Muslims don't break